ICAS Foundation Hall of Fame first inducted Bob Hoover back in 1995. Since then, 73 legends have been inducted. Tonight, it will be the 75th and 76th inductees. Nominees come from all areas of the air show business. They include performers, announcers, event organizers, support service providers. Okay. One thing they all have in common is they have made significant contributions to our industry. When the first inductee, an event organizer from the great town of Salinas, California, who single-handedly changed the way many air shows conduct business. And as Jim Gattis makes his way up, I want to tell you a little backstory. And it starts with C.K. Newcomb, Chuck Newcomb, who was a former Blue Angel, who after he got out of the Navy, he started to produce air shows professionally. And that has been his profession all through the years and still is. His organization still is responsible for the success of the Cleveland National Air Show. When Jim Gattis and the leaders from Salinas decided they thought they wanted to have a show, they called out the pros. They called out Chuck Newcomb to give them a presentation. Newcomb gave them the presentation, and it was all great. They said, okay, now let's break and go have dinner and drinks. And over that informal area, Jim Gattis, our next inductee, said, Chuck Newcomb, I've got an idea I want to run by you. And here's what it is. And they talked about it over dinner. And Chuck Newcomb made this comment, this quote. He said, Gattis, if you can do that, we're going to bring you to Cleveland and you make a presentation to us. Now, I can tell you, since that time back in about 1981 or so, that the DNA of every successful air show in North America and around the world has a part of the Salinas plan in it. That is quite an event. So we're going to roll a clip, Mr. Lee, if you please.
He's a commercial real estate professional and leader within the Salinas business community. Jim Gattis first became involved in the air show business when the United States Navy Blue Angels called him in the summer of 1981, asking if his community could fill an unexpected cancellation in the team's schedule. Just 90 days later, the California International Air Show hosted their first show. The system Jim built in just a few days for that first Salinas Air Show has become the model for engaging local businesses in planning and delivering a community-based air show. The event he helped launch has operated for 44 years, entertaining hundreds of thousands and supporting hundreds of Salinas Valley charities along the way. In 1985, just 4 years after launching the California International Air Show, Jim received the coveted ICAS Sword of Excellence for his service on the ICAS Board of Directors and for sharing the fundraising model he developed in Salinas with air shows across North America. For his work as a leader, innovator, and industry advocate in the air show community, the ICAS Foundation is proud to welcome Jim Gattis into the Air Show Hall of Fame.
Jim, congratulations. It's all yours.
Thank you
buddy.
so much. Well, good evening, everyone. Standing here tonight is truly a humbling experience. To be recognized by the International Council of Air Shows is an honor beyond words. But first, I would like to acknowledge my federal inductee tonight, Bud Granley. And ironically, Bud and I are both 88 years old. So, which makes me wonder, is ICAS getting desperate for inductees? Or did it just get to G's in the alphabet? Or maybe it was just now or never. I'm not sure what it was, but otherwise. But it's a pleasure to share this experience with you tonight. Thank you. Back in 81, a small group of us, some of this has been repeated, and that's the first time that I've seen that video, and I will be repeating a few of those things, but I'll keep it brief. And I just realized tonight when we were sitting at the table, and looking at that, and I look back at getting the sword in 1985. It's the first time it hit me that that was 40 years ago. And it's unbelievable what a blur it's been, but it's been an incredible ride, and we'll talk about that. But in 81, when a small group of us launched the Salinas Air Show, we couldn't have imagined the journey that lay ahead. What started as a community event, which is 44 years later, has become a tradition that has given over $9 million to our local charities. As Danny said, we hired Chuck Newcomb to advise us on how to plan our first air show. It was so successful that I was invited to share our business model at the ICAS convention in New Orleans. I didn't know ICAS from anyone, but I went there and I shared that with the group. And when I left ICAS, I was a board member. So I spent 9 years, I was fortunate to spend 9 years on the ICAS board of directors. Those years and the friendships formed and some of the experiences we had were the most rewarding events in our lives. My wife, Jerry, and I will always treasure the people we met and the experiences that we shared on that journey. You know, my best at flying is I was a part-time flight instructor and a charter pilot. And to go to ICAS and to go onto the board and be sitting at the same table with the rock stars of aviation, this was very, very exhilarating. Let me tell you, it was exciting. And a couple of three highlights of my experience with that was riding with the Blue Angels in '83. That was definitely an e-ticket. And then my wife and I lived in England in 1990, and Tom Poberezny and Chuck Newman called me up and said, Jaguar Motors wants to put on a big display at Oshkosh for 50th anniversary of Battle of Britain. Can you find a pilot and people who were tracking that and people who worked at Castle Bromwich in England? We organized that with RAF Hendon, put that whole group together, flew over, did that in 1990 at Oshkosh. So that was definitely a highlight. Another one was in '91. We were back here, and it was called because we were the only West Coast show, and there were eight shows, and we were going to bring the MiGs in and tour them around. So a very long story short, I was the only guy on the West Coast with a credit card, and we had an IL-76 and 2 MiGs, and in an 8-week period, I was in and out of Alaska 5 different times, getting them in and out and back and forth, and it was a very, very memorable experience. So once again, how would somebody like me have an experience like that if it hadn't been through this whole relationship with ICAS? In 1984, we had the privilege of hosting the first ICAS on the West Coast. We did that in Monterey. The proceeds from that event helped ICAS hire its first permanent employee, Rick Nadeau. In that moment, it really marked a turning point for ICAS, because once we got a permanent person on board, they could start that initial organization that takes to what you've seen has grown into today. So it's grown into the premier organization that's guiding and shaping the entire air show industry. And I'm proud that Salinas played a small part in that, and proud of how far this organization has come. And in 1985, I was honored to receive the ICAS Sword of Excellence, as we said earlier, and I want to recognize others from Salinas who has also received that. Wayne Hanley and Sean Tucker and Harry Wardwell. Wayne and Sean have also been inducted into this Hall of Fame, and I'm deeply honored to join them. The spirit of Salinas has always been about people coming together, civilian and military pilots, volunteers, sponsors, all united by a love of aviation and a desire to give back. Involvement in the Salinas Air Show and participation in ICAS events has had a profound effect on all of us. I especially want to thank Harry Wardwell for his 6-year service on the ICAS board, and 2 years in which he was chairman, and his leadership as our executive director, and for his exceptional fundraising abilities, probably the best I've ever seen at raising funds. I also want to thank my wife, Jerry, for setting the hospitality bar high in those early years, and for Karen Curtis for continuing that tradition by starting Mavericks that continues to grow each year. Karen also served 3 years on the ICAS board. Also, special thanks to Gail Rautzer and Kathy Eby, our air show bosses, for keeping our air show safe. And finally, to the Salinas Air Show Board of Directors for all of their leadership and the accumulative efforts of 44 years of producing the show in Salinas. Their commitment and their passion is a great inspiration to me. To ICAS and the Air Coast family, Air Show family, and everyone who helped make this journey possible, thank you for believing in the idea that took flight all those years ago. It's been an incredible ride. Thank you.